everybody. Welcome. Happy Sunday and welcome to day 11 of my 12 days of self-care challenge. Today actually should be day 12, but I missed yesterday because I was at an all-day conference down in Atlantic City with my sorority sisters, a leadership summit actually, and there weren't enough hours in the day, and logistically I couldn't get it together to go live yesterday. So again, it's about progress, not perfection. So I gave myself permission to be imperfect. So I hope you will too. But for those just joining us for the very first time, my 12 days of self-care challenge is a challenge that operates on two levels. Number one, it's a personal challenge for me to overcome my fear and mental blocks that I have around going live on Facebook so I can develop and grow as a professional. And but on a more important level, it's also about sharing self-care tips, tricks, information to inspire and empower all of us to take better care of ourselves in this new year and beyond. Because a lot of you guys are like me. We tend to be a little bit better at taking care of other people, handling our business and handling the things and people in our lives that we care about. And we do an awesome job at doing that. And we're not as adept as we probably need to be, or maybe we could always improve in doing a better job at taking care of ourselves. So for all the caregivers out there, for all the parents, the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, if you take care of anything or anybody besides yourself, if it's a plant, if it's a pet, if it's another human being, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a parent, grandparent, or whatever, this is for you. This whole series, this is video number 11 out of 12. And please go back, watch them at your convenience. I'll post them on my website at liznollytillman.com. I'm posting them here on my business page, and Ian Tillman on Facebook, as well as linking to them on my Instagram and putting them on Twitter and putting them all. There's a whole playlist on my YouTube channel. So if you like this series, if you like any of the videos, please share them with others, because I think all of us can do a better job at taking better care of ourselves. Self-care isn't just a catchphrase. It should be a way of life. It should, and this whole series is dedicated to things to put in your self-care toolkit, if you will. Okay, so even though it's serious business that we're talking about, because taking care of yourself is critical, we've been having some fun with it because I like to mix, I like to take very serious topics and kind of address them with a little bit lighter touch, because sometimes we get so down, we can get depressed and fall into negative spaces which makes it more difficult to climb our way back out and keep things in their proper perspective. So, inspired by the 12 days of Christmas, I'm bringing you this 12 days of self-care, and I've modified the lyrics and have done some singing along the way, and I've gotten some feedback from friends of mine offline who say, yeah, sing it at the beginning, sing the song at the end of each broadcast. So I will commit to doing that, even though I'm a terrible singer and I can't sing. But that's not the point. The point is the information that we're sharing, and that when you watch one video, or if you wind up watching all 12, that you leave with something a little bit more than you came with. And as we go and talk about each topic every day, chime in the comments, share your ideas, so that, you can help or bless somebody else, okay? So, yes to the song. Okay, Obrina, I hear you. I'm about to get into that right now. So just to quickly recap, day 1 was about a blanket and green tea, and that was about taking care of the foundational stuff, our safety and being better patients, taking care of our health. Day 2 was about 2 scented candles, which was about our limbic system and stimulating it in a positive way through aromatherapy and stimulating our senses in a positive way to boost our emotions and make us healthier that way. Day 3 was about 3 Kindle books, and that's all about feeding our minds carefully because we are what we eat. Day 4 was about 4 yoga classes, which was about physical fitness and doing little things in our lives to become more physically fit. Day 5 is always my favorite, and that was just about 5 minutes to breathe. Self-explanatory. Taking time for ourselves and establishing boundaries and office hours at home. Day 6 was about music being food for the soul. Day 7 was about reconnecting with your tribe and 7 friends for dinner. Day 8 was about 8 mani-pedis, and that represents taking time to indulge once in a while. Treat yourself right. Pamper yourself. Why? Because you deserve it, and it's important to nurture our self-esteem once in a while, and if not regularly. And day 9 was about guided meditations and developing a mindfulness practice as part of our self-care journeys. Day 10 was about 10% interest and handling our business and being fiscally fit. And along the way, today I was going to do something about nutrition and 11, healthy meals or whatever, or healthy lunches, I think is what I had. But throughout days 1 through 10, we've been talking about the importance of feeding our bodies and feeding our minds with more healthy tips and strategies and healthy things. And it's kind of been a theme that's been, woven throughout other episodes. So I'm not going to dedicate a full episode to that. I'll just say this. And I've said this in some of the other videos. I'm not a big fan of diets because I don't think they're necessarily sustainable. I kind of think they're kind of like New Year's resolutions, in that, when you make a decision to go on a diet, and this is a self-proclaimed diet, right? Not necessarily something that your doctor told you to do, but you say, oh, I'm going to go on a diet, and you're all into it for the first couple of days, and you skyrocket, and then it kind of like tapers off. At least that's been my struggle with diets and resolutions and things like that, because it takes 30 days for anything to form a habit, right? And I've found greater success in my own journey, not necessarily by making extreme changes and expecting myself to sustain them over the longer term, but just by tweaking a little thing here or a little thing there, like drinking more water every day, like reducing the sugar count and the salt, replacing salt with garlic or onion or natural flavorings or whatever. So I've found a lot more success for myself in doing little but meaningful, sustainable tweaks and changes in how I live my life. So that's why I decided not to do something specifically on diet, because 1, I've talked about it throughout the other videos, and 2, I just think it's more about making sustainable tweaks and sustainable change, and that's a pathway to transformation versus starting out with a bang and then tapering off, and then you're falling back in a place that's right back where you started, if not behind that. So anyway, I'll leave that like little mini lesson in there on nutrition and get right into day 11, and you'll find out what that's about right after I warm up my voice. Me. Okay, it's like I said before, it's not going to help me sound any better. Here we go with the song, okay? And then we'll get into today's topic. So on the 11th day of self-care, my true self gave to me 11 coaching sessions, 10% interest, 9 meditations, 8 mani-pedis, 7 friends for dinner, 8 awesome playlists, 5 minutes to breathe, 4 yoga classes, 3 Kindle books, 2 scented candles, and a blanket with a cup of green tea. Okay. Was that okay, Obrina? I hope so. Okay. So today is all about 11 coaching sessions. Now, what do I mean by that? The coaching sessions represent our education the information that we consume and how we can develop personally, professionally, lifelong learning, right? I chose coaching because of the different types of help and support. Great. Thank you for the smile, Abrina. That we can get. Coaching is probably among the least understood, but there's actually 5 different types of training, support, coaching, intellectual, for our intellectual sides that I want to just touch on. And at different points in our lives, and depending upon what we're struggling with and what we're challenged with, we need any and all of these types of teachers and coaches in our lives at some point. And so there's 5 different points. The first is teachers, right? They're, like your favorite kindergarten teacher. Shout out to Mrs. Smith, who's my kindergarten teacher and sent me a Christmas card every year since I graduated from high school. And my mom and dad are both teachers, educators, K through 12, your college professors. These are people whose jobs it is to help us learn and cultivate new skills. So they help us learn things we either just don't know about or things that we don't know how to do. So if I take let's say, and I like sports and whatever, but let's say I'm struggling, I want to learn to speak Italian, or I want to learn to play basketball. So I might take a class and a teacher might teach me those skills, right? So they might teach me some, Italian vocabulary or whatever. They might teach me how to shoot or play defense or to dribble the ball or whatever it is, that skill that I'm trying to learn, or that information that I need to learn how to speak Italian. That's what teachers do. And we all need teachers. And I think intellectually we understand that, because teachers are, like after our parents, probably we spend more time with teachers in our formative years than we probably do anybody else in our lives. So we get teachers. Most of us are like, yeah, check, I know who the teachers are in my life, right? So, and if that's you, say, yeah, I'm good with teachers in the comments. So, and I think that's great. We need teachers. The second group of people that we need in our lives to help us develop and grow intellectually are counselors. And I mean like psychiatrists, counselors, psychotherapists, or whatever, mental health professionals or counselors. And counselors, they provide guidance, and they also, like if you go to counseling, they help you to overcome mental health concerns and issues, or emotional concerns and issues. And in certain communities, going to a counseling is viewed as a sign of weakness, and it shouldn't be, because sometimes, if you're sick, you go to the doctor, but if you have an illness that's more intellectually oriented or emotionally oriented, you still need to go to the doctor, right? And that's where counselors come in, counselors and therapists and stuff like that. So, they can help you with very specific issues or deep-rooted issues, over a long-term, period of time. I'm a big supporter of counseling. My brother's a mental health professional and a psychotherapist and a counselor. I just have to say, if you're reluctant, if you're thinking about it, whatever, do the research, talk to some people who are in the field and everything. Counselors are a great resource if you're struggling with those types of issues. Now, let's go back to my example. Let's say for some reason, the first time, you bounce the basketball, you happen to see a pigeon get hit by a bus. And it kind of scarred you for life and messed you up. So you have this negative association with basketball that you just can't get through. You have a mental block. You have some sort of emotional issue connected with the game of basketball. Or let's say, you were watching a documentary about going to Italy and then somebody cut into it with a scary movie that kind of messed you up mentally or whatever, and you have this negative association in your head, or a fear, or some kind of emotional turmoil that's associated with learning basketball or learning Italian or something. I mean, my example is a little bit ridiculous, but I just want to make each one of these concepts accessible to everybody. So, a counselor can help you overcome those types of fears and emotional concerns and things like that. Or let's say you have the wiring in your brain is kind of like off, and maybe you need a speech therapist or a special kind of counselor to help you, rewire your brain so that you can learn a language or learn the physical mobility skills needed to play basketball or whatever. So that's teachers and counselors. And we shouldn't be afraid or embarrassed if we need to go to a counselor. Okay. I just want to, there's a lot of shame and embarrassment and reluctancy for people to get the counseling support that they need. So don't let that be you, right? It's self-care, doing the right thing by yourself. That's what this is about. So teachers, counselors, those are the first two groups of people. The third group of people, which if you're watching this, you've probably achieved some level of success in different aspects of your lives, thanks to this group. And those are mentors. And a mentor is somebody who's walked where you're walking. They've done what you're trying to do or what you're in the process of doing, but maybe they're a little bit further along in their journey than you are, and you see them as a resource. Instead of having to Google it, you call your friend who's been doing the same thing. And we all have mentors in our lives, and mentors are critical in our personal and professional development. Let's take our two examples again. So let's say you want to learn Italian and your BFF, just spent 3 months living in Italy and came back. You would certainly go to him or her because they've been where you want to be and say, hey, I'm trying to master this piece of this in my Italian class or this piece. What do you suggest or what have you? Same thing, in the basketball, just to go back to my basketball, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest centers to ever play the game, was a mentor to Shaquille O'Neal when he was part of the Lakers organization. And Shaq at that time was trying to get to where Kareem had been, right? So who better to kind of show him the ropes? He wasn't trying to teach, Kareem wasn't necessarily trying to teach Shaq the ins and outs of playing basketball. Shaq was already at the top of his game, but to kind of understand the nuances of it and stuff like that. Hey, Kareem, how did you deal with this? How did you deal with that? Some of it was probably basketball talk, but some of it, my guess is that had nothing to do with the game of basketball, but it was an experience. But Kareem's experience as being at the top of the game in the NBA, life on and off the court and things like that. Like, there's very few humans on the face of the planet that can relate to that experience. So the Lakers paired them up, and Kareem mentored Shaq because Kareem had walked the walk where Shaq was trying to go. Right? Does that make sense? And that's what mentors are. And we find those professionally. We find them spiritually. Your pastor's probably lived a life and has done some things that you could talk about and, to him or to her because they've walked where you're trying to walk. Or maybe you're trying to get deeper in your spiritual journey. And so, your pastor's further along in that journey than you are. So you go to them and they can mentor you. They can also provide counseling, right? A lot of them, and they can also provide teaching. But I'm just saying, that's the difference between a teacher, a counselor, and a mentor. A mentor has already walked a road that you're trying to walk. So they're a source of learning and experience and wisdom sharing for you. So that's teachers, counselors, and mentors. And you need all three of these folks in your life, depending upon what your challenge is and where you are in your journey. The fourth group of people is particularly important in your professional life, or your political life. And I'll tell you what I mean by political life in a minute. But and those are sponsors. And a lot of times, if we're part of corporate training programs or whatever, or leadership development programs or whatever, they teach you how to get mentors through networking or whatever. Maybe your boss is a mentor, a former boss, or what have you. But people, they don't really talk about sponsorship a lot, especially in communities of color and groups like women and others who are kind of trying to catch up to, the mainstream in corporate circles and other circles. But sponsors are people who speak for you when you're not in the room. They have the seat at the table, And they're going to advocate for you because you don't have a seat at the table and you can't bring a folding chair like Shirley Chisholm and pull it up and join the conversation. They have access to resources and spaces that you don't. So you need them there speaking for you and advocating for you. Sponsorship. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're up for... I'm sorry, I just had a little technical glitch. Let's say, I'm trying to think of a really good example. Oh, I have an example. In my sorority life, I actually, me and another sorority sister of mine happened unwittingly served as a sponsor to another soror of ours. We call ourselves soror sisters, which is an abbreviation for sisters. But our regional director was looking for somebody to serve as a liaison to a population of our sorority sisters, of our membership, that was kind of underserved. And so she asked others on the leadership team if they knew anybody who might be good. And I said, oh my God, I've got the perfect person for you. Because I was in the room. I had the seat at the table with the regional director, but this other sorority sister of mine didn't. She didn't even know the conversation was taking place. And as it would happen, her name came up not just by me, but by a couple of other people who had, seen, who had watched her and seen how she moved and saw her skill sets and what she brought to the table. And because the regional director, who's the, top person in our, in our geographic region, heard her name from multiple people, she said, oh, okay, let me take a look at this person. And she wound up appointing her to this particular position. So I and the other people who recommended this person, unbeknownst to them, served as sponsors. And we need people to sponsor us. I think that's the part that gets lost sometimes when we're talking about, like the gender movement or Me Too or whatever it is. As women, we need men to speak for us, to advocate for us, because they have access to places, spaces, and resources where we're not in, where we aren't. Okay, so if they're not at the table convincing their peer group that we should be there or advocating on behalf of the issues and things like that, that impact us, then we'll never get that seat at the table. But imagine in a room full of men, if a man says, you know what, Susie over here would be great, we should bring her in, let's talk to her, and blah, 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 blah. That's a heck of an opportunity for Susie, because she had a sponsor who was speaking for her and advocating for her when she wasn't in the room. So that's something I've learned in my corporate journey, and that I've seen play out over and over and over, politically, personally, and that's why bills get sponsored by our representatives, because they're in the room and we're not. So anyway, sponsorship is a really key skill set and thing to develop, and I can do a whole series just on sponsorship and things like that, but just put that in your back pocket and start to think about who in your life could potentially serve as a mentor, who then could bring a sponsor into your awareness, right? Because that's how that game works, because most of us stop at mentorship. We understand how that works, but we don't even understand or realize that sponsorship is even a thing. It is, and it's a critical path. That's how you see that's how the old boys network works, and that's, because they don't necessarily have to know each other. It's just that, like, their names are on the lips and minds of the people who are in the room making the decisions. And so we've got to figure out how to get sponsors so that we're part of the conversation when we're not in the room. So does that make sense? If that's making sense, say sponsorship, yes, or like, yeah, that makes sense or whatever. Let me know, because I kind of like really enjoy that feedback. So anyway, so we need teachers, we need counselors. We shouldn't be afraid of tapping into counselors when we need them. We definitely know and understand we need mentors, and we need sponsors. So The last group of people that we need is also somewhat misunderstood, which is why I made today about 11 coaching sessions. And those are coaches. So coaching is like the rage right now, right? And coaches are people who are, they're not, coaches are people who guide. They're like Sherpas, if you will. So they guide you through a transformation process. They help you become the best version of yourself. So they may or may not have direct expertise in whatever your area of expertise is. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But they're experts in the process of helping you to connect with the best parts of yourself, to amplify your skills, and so that true transformation in your life can occur. Let me give you an example. So there's a lot of like life coaches out there, like Tony Robbins and different ones, Jan Van Zandt or whomever. And, they're not experts in every single thing, but they know how to connect to people, and they know how to inspire people to take whatever that specific issue is that they might be dealing with and tap into the best part of themselves so they can overcome that challenge and transform their lives. Now that sounds a little, you're like, yeah, Liz, okay, coaching. But let me make it a little bit more tangible for you. So think about Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was a decent basketball player. He was better than most, but he'll never be remembered for his prowess as a basketball player, in my opinion. I think he'll be more remembered as being one of the best coaches to ever coach the game, because he coached the 4P, he coached Kobe, he coached MJ, Michael Jordan, so what was so special about him, and I reference him in my mindfulness video, but the thing about Phil Jackson was, as a coach, yes, he knew the game of basketball. He did. But there's a lot of people out there who know the game of basketball but never achieved the level of success that Phil Jackson achieved as a coach. The reason why is because it's about more than just the technical knowledge of the game. He was never the player that Michael Jordan was, but he knew how to coach, he knew how to lead, and he knew how to help players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and others tap into the best parts of themselves so that the best version of themselves would show up every single day. That's the power of a coach. That's what coaches help you to do. They guide you through a transformation process to get the best part of you to show up. That's the power of coaching, and that's why the coaching business today is a multi-billion-dollar business, and it's booming because a really great coach can help you to transform in different aspects of your lives in a very powerful way. And when transformation occurs, it's worth the investment of working with coaches, because now I know you're saying, well, coaches, Tony Robbins is so expensive, whatever. But just think about this. If, let's say, your marriage was on the brink of divorce and you found a really good relationship coach, and it costs, I don't know, what would that be worth to you to fix your marriage? If you could, if you were struggling, if you wanted to be the best NBA player available, in the history of all NBA players, Michael Jordan, how much would a great coach be worth to you, right? Serena Williams, greatest athlete, one of the greatest athletes, period, in the history of athletics, has coaches who are helping her to become the best version of herself. Models have runway coaches to help them walk even better and get the little nuances and take their game up to the next level. And the list goes on. So that's coaches. So those are the 5 groups of people who you need in your life to help you in your self-care journey so that you can show up as the best version of yourself in every aspect of your lives. Now, you might not need all 5 of them all at the same time or whatever. Again, who you need and the team that you need is really dependent on where you are in your journey, what challenge it is that you're working on, and which part of yourself you're trying to tweak and fine-tune and take to that next level. So I hope this makes sense. And just to recap, again, the 5 types of teachers, trainers that you need in your life in my opinion, are teachers. And that could be a personal trainer who's teaching you an exercise routine. You're learning a very specific skill. It's very how to oriented, or you're gaining new knowledge from them that you didn't have before. That's teachers. Counselors help you with mental health and emotional issues or blocks or hang-ups or things like that you can't really see through for yourself. And mentors are people who have walked where you're trying to go. They've been where you're trying to get to, and you can learn and profit greatly from their wisdom that comes with their experience. Sponsors, those are people who speak for you and advocate for you. They're your voice in spaces where you don't yet have access to. They speak for you when you're not in the room and can make things happen in your life. And finally, coaches are people who help you to tap into that best part of yourself and bring that best version of yourself forward. They may or may not be expert in whatever your field of endeavor is, but they're experts in the coaching process, which is all about guiding and leading people through transformational change in their lives to help them become the best versions of themselves. So that's my lesson for today. That's the self-care tip today, because these are the people, the mentors, the coaches, the teachers, the Sherpas in our lives that we need to help guide us. We can't do any of this stuff by ourselves. Nobody succeeds alone. Nobody does anything alone, right? There's always people there. We talked about tribe, right? And these folks should be part of your tribe, just like your doctors, your lawyers, your accountants, and everything. You need people to take care of the performance side of yourself, right? So anyway, again, if you like this series, please share it. Please like it. Please share it. I want to try to reach as many people as I possibly can with this series, because I think it's really important for us to remind ourselves about, the small but powerful changes that we can make to take better care of ourselves so that we can take care of the people and things that we care most about. And with that, I will sing the song one more time. We're getting close to the end. Tomorrow night will be day 12. So join me tomorrow night. I probably won't get on until around 8:30 p.m. If I'm lucky, because I have some stuff going on here at the house. We're still working on trying to get our furnace fixed, but we're counting our blessings because our situation could always be worse. So my goal is to get on around 8:30 or so tomorrow to close out the series with day 11. But until then, so please mark your calendars, tune in, tell others to come on and join us on my Facebook page at Ian Tillman. And until then, I will leave you with this. So on the 11th day of self-care, my true self gave to me 11 coaching sessions, 10% interest, 9 meditations, 8 mani-pedis, 7 friends for dinner, 6 awesome playlists, 5 minutes to breathe, 4 yoga classes, 3 Kindle books, 2 scented candles, and a blanket with a cup of green tea. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.